My name is Sergeant Elias Vance. At least, that's the name etched on the dog tags I still wear around my neck. They feel heavier now than they ever did back then. I was just a man given a rifle, a rank, and a place in the grand, terrible machinery of World War III. My role was simple enough on paper: lead my squad, follow orders, and try to keep my soldiers alive. But in that war, simplicity bled out on the first day. The world we knew was loud before it all started, full of traffic, laughter, and the mundane hum of life. Now, even on this quiet day, June 15th, 2025, the silence that followed the war is the loudest thing I've ever heard. It's a hollow, ringing emptiness that reminds you of everything that was lost. Before the first shots were fired, we were told this was a necessary conflict. A war to end all wars, they said again, just like they did a century ago. We were young, or at least we felt young, filled with a sense of duty that felt righteous and true. We believed in the flags and the anthems. We believed we were the good guys, drawing a line in the sand against an encroaching darkness. I remember the faces of the recruits I trained, boys who had never held anything more dangerous than a kitchen knife. I taught them how to march, how to shoot, and how to become part of a unit. I taught them how to survive, or so I thought. But the lessons of the training ground were whispers against the coming storm. The reality of our mission was far grimmer than any manual could describe. We weren't just soldiers, we were custodians of a dying world tasked with navigating its final violent convulsions. My job evolved from leading charges to finding clean water, from coordinating attacks to rationing out the last of the food supplies. The grand strategies of generals meant little on the ground when you were trying to keep a frightened private from giving up hope. The rank on my collar became a burden, a constant reminder of the lives that depended on the choices I made in the heart of chaos. And so I sit here today, an old man in a world that aged 1,000 years in a decade. The title Sergeant feels like a ghost, a remnant of a man I barely recognize. The war didn't just break nations, it fractured souls. It took the boy from the countryside, the student from the city, the father from his family, and it forged them into something else, something harder, colder, and forever marked by the things we saw and the things we did. The silence of this new world isn't peace. It is the echo of every scream, every explosion, and every last, desperate prayer that went unanswered. It is the sound of absence. The chaos began not with a bang, but with a blinding flash that painted the distant horizon white. We saw it before we heard it. A second sun, born of human fury, bloomed silently in the sky, and we knew the old world was officially over. Then came the shockwave, a physical manifestation of doom that tore through the landscape, ripping trees from the earth and buildings from their foundations. That was the first nuke we witnessed. It would not be the last. Each one was a punctuation mark in a global sentence of death, a horrific, beautiful pillar of fire that erased cities and histories in an instant. The sky was never truly dark again, always glowing with a sickly radioactive light. On the ground, the war was a relentless symphony of destruction, and we were the unwilling orchestra. The constant crackle of gunfire became our new rhythm, a deadly beat that never seemed to fade. Bullets whizzed past our heads, tearing through the air with a sound like angry hornets. Mortar shells rained down, their deafening explosions shaking the very marrow in our bones and turning the soil into a churned mess of dirt and blood. The air was thick with the metallic tang of cordite and the coppery scent of bloodshed, a perfume so potent it clung to you, seeping into your clothes, your skin and your memory. It was an assault on every sense, designed to break you down piece by piece. There was no front line in this war. The battlefield was everywhere. One moment you were advancing through the skeletal remains of a suburban neighborhood, the next you were fighting for your life in the ruins of a once great library, its books burning like funeral pyres. We fought against soldiers who looked just like us, scared, exhausted and desperate. But we also fought against drones, automated killing machines that stalked the ruins with cold, unfeeling precision. They had no fear, no remorse, and no hesitation. They were the perfect soldiers for a world that had lost its humanity, and their mechanical whirring became the soundtrack to our nightmares. The horror was not just in the fighting, but in the aftermath. The sight of a fallen comrade, his face frozen in a silent scream, is an image burned into my mind forever. We saw courage that defied belief. Soldiers shielding their friends with their own bodies, medics running into a hail of bullets to save a life. But we also saw the true face of war's cruelty. The empty playgrounds, the shattered homes, the lost and wandering children with eyes that had seen too much. It was a world turned upside down, where the basic tenets of civilization had been incinerated alongside the cities. The chaos was absolute, a maelstrom of fire and steel that consumed everything. In the heart of the storm, you learn to live moment to moment. Your world shrinks to the few feet of mud and debris around you. You don't think about yesterday, and you dare not dream of tomorrow. Your entire existence is focused on the next breath, the next step, the next trigger pull. Fear is a constant companion, a cold knot in your stomach that never truly goes away. You learn to function with it, to push it down deep, because if you let it take over, you're dead. But it's always there, a shadow that clings to you, even in the brief moments of respite, reminding you that your life is hanging by the thinnest of threads. I remember the faces. That's the hardest part. I remember Private Miller, a kid from Ohio who used to talk endlessly about the farm he was going to buy after the war. He was killed by a sniper while trying to share his rations with a stray dog. I remember Corporal Eva Rostova, our communications specialist, who hummed old folk songs to keep our spirits up. She died in my arms after a drone strike. Her last words a question about whether her family would know she was brave. These aren't just names on a memorial wall. They are ghosts that walk with me every day. Their voices are in the wind, their faces in the crowd. There were moments that tested the very limits of my soul. I recall a night spent huddled in a bombed-out church, the stained glass windows shattered into a million pieces. The rain was pouring through the broken roof, mixing with the dust and ash. We were surrounded, low on ammunition, and expecting an attack at any moment. I looked at the exhausted faces of my squad, kids no older than 20, and I had to tell them to hold the line. I had to project a confidence I didn't feel, a strength I didn't possess. In that moment, I wasn't just a sergeant. I was a liar, selling them a hope I couldn't guarantee, and that weight is heavier than any rifle. The war changed me in ways I am still discovering. It scraped away the softer parts of my being, leaving behind something scarred and weathered. I learned to make impossible choices, to sacrifice one life to save 10, to look at another human being through the sights of my rifle and see only a target. That part of me, the soldier, is still there. He watches from the back of my mind, ever vigilant, ever suspicious. He doesn't trust the quiet. He doesn't believe in safety. Peace feels like a temporary ceasefire, not a permanent state. And I carry the burden of his experience in every interaction, every relationship, every quiet moment of reflection. The war didn't just break armies, it shattered the world. Nations ceased to exist, their borders erased by fire and radiation. The great monuments of human achievement were reduced to rubble, and the global network that connected us all was severed. We were thrown back into a darker age, a world of scattered settlements and fortified towns, where trust was a rare and precious commodity. The survivors were left to pick through the ashes of civilization, to mourn not just the people we lost, but the future we had once believed in. The sky is clearer now, but the scars on the land are a permanent reminder of our collective failure. The impact on people was even more profound. We are a generation defined by loss. Everyone has lost someone, a parent, a child, a friend, a home. We carry a shared trauma, a silent understanding that binds us together in our grief. We see it in each other's eyes, that hollowed-out look of someone who has stared into the abyss. We became suspicious, hardened, and slow to hope. The simple joys of the old world, a warm meal, a safe night's sleep, the company of loved ones, became luxuries we could no longer take for granted. The war fundamentally altered our DNA, leaving a legacy of sorrow and resilience that will be passed down for generations. Yet even in the deepest darkness, humanity found a way to endure. It is a stubborn, resilient thing. I have seen it with my own eyes. I have seen communities form from the rubble, strangers sharing the last of their food, and people working together to build something new, from the wreckage. I have seen a teacher gathering children in a ruined square, drawing letters in the dirt, determined that knowledge will not be another casualty of the war. There is an indomitable spirit in us, a refusal to be extinguished. It is in these small acts of defiance, of creation, of community, that the first seeds of a new world are being sown. The great lesson of the war is a simple one, taught at a terrible cost. It is that our shared humanity is more important than any flag, any border, or any ideology. We learned that the power to create is infinitely more valuable than the power to destroy. My hope, my final mission, is that we remember this lesson. We must teach our children about the price of hatred, about the fragility of peace. We must build a world not on the foundations of fear and division, but on compassion and understanding. The war took almost everything from us, but it cannot take our ability to choose a better path. That choice is our last and most important line of defense.